Krishnamoorthi is back with us. Congressman, there's so much here. I've been interviewing John Bolton for years. Can't say I've agreed with him once on any kind of foreign policy. He's not a stupid man, but he's got some strong hawkish views on stuff. I don't agree with what he did on Iran. I also don't agree that he should be targeted by the Iranians for death, which is what was the case. And he was under protection because of that, and that was lifted in the first piece of retribution against John Bolton. Seems to fit the pattern here.
Yeah, I think so. Look, we have to always protect classified intelligence. You and I have talked about this many times. But the way that this raid was kind of rolled out through these orchestrated tweets really smacks of political retribution. And let's just be very clear, this was not just meant to silence John Bolton. This was meant to send a message to anybody that the FBI could visit a home near you if you criticize the Trump administration. And as I said earlier, I believe that this was really an attempt to distract from the production of the Epstein files, which is going to happen today and which is not one of Donald Trump's favorite subjects. And so just the whole spectacle, the whole situation reeked of politics more than anything else.
Well, it kills two birds with one stone, right? It might be distraction from Epstein, and it's this campaign of retribution that Donald Trump was very clear he would engage in. The interesting thing here is that Bolton was one of those guys who was super loyal to Trump. He was going to be I think he was going to be the Secretary of State. I don't think he was going to get the votes in the Senate to be able to be confirmed. But he was the National Security Advisor. He was tight with Trump for a long time until he wasn't. And that's the message, that you can be loyal to Trump, you can have nothing to do with Trump, but if you ever find yourself on the other side of Trump, it's all going to look the same. They're going to come after you a certain way, to the extent that the vice president surprisingly said to Kristen Welker, we're doing a broad investigation into him.
I think that's exactly right. You know, I think that you see just a pattern of former Trump administration officials that have been added to this enemies list. And again, I think that he's also sending a message to current Trump administration officials, don't cross me. You know, John Bolton at one point was convenient for him to have in his cabinet. Then he basically disagreed with Trump on certain matters, and then he went on the outs. And at that point, he became an enemy.
You bring an interesting point up. One doesn't know what they're investigating, and one doesn't know, and John Bolton is a guy who would have had access to classified information. We just don't know. But it all starts to look the same, right? Adam Schiff looks the same as Tish James, who looks the same as a Federal Reserve governor who nobody had heard about before this week, who now is being looked into for mortgage fraud. Miles Taylor was saying, you know, it's soon enough they'll be looking for traffic tickets for everybody. The point here is that if the government comes for you, you have to get yourself into a certain mode. You have to get lawyers of a sort. You can't just get any lawyer. You got to have somebody who's prepared to do that. There are increasingly fewer lawyers who are prepared to take on these fights because they don't want to get into it with the government. This is a big deal.
It's a big deal. And this is where, you know, the government is going off the rails. Look, I think that I'm here in deep southern Illinois, and the thing that I'm hearing over and over again is not only just concern about the Epstein files, but the mismanagement of the economy, the fact that there's an affordability crisis, the fact that electricity bills are skyrocketing and people can't afford groceries and gas. And so I think Trump is increasingly going to try to distract from his mismanagement of the economy, as well as the Epstein files, by turning to other subjects, one of which is, you know, going after people like Schiff, or going after people like Bolton, or going after Vindman, and so forth, and trying to rally his MAGA base around him at the same time that I think the majority of the American people don't like the direction of the country. And so now it's up to us as Democrats, but really as citizens of this country, to stand up, speak up, and make sure that we hold Trump accountable, and that we think about architecting a system of reforms to prevent a Trump-like presidency from happening again. Yeah. That's what we're going to have to do eventually, a post-Watergate type of set of reforms, because now we know what can go wrong when we trust too much discretion to the executive.
Yeah, although this might be like fixing an airplane while it's flying, right? We're going to may have to do some of this stuff while this bumpy flight is still in the air. Congressman, good to see you as always. Thank you. Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi.